Okay, so we know housing and housing affordability is an issue in Canada right now, and we need to build supply. Now, what's happened recently out in Vancouver or BC, people state a condo bailout. Condo bailout? You need homes, or do you not need homes? Like, what is it? Do you need homes or do you not need homes? Or we're seeing this pattern of doubting Thomases all the time. So everything you do is wrong. So you need new supply because there's not enough supply. It's created a problem of supply and demand. You have an affordability issue. How do you get around an affordability issue? You have to have supply that is equal to demand or slightly more. It's just really basic mathematics. Nothing, doesn't require a genius to figure this out. But for some reason, people are reverting to Carney's condo bailout. So is it a condo bailout? Or is it actually very smart by taking action with available units right now and converting them into properties that can address the affordability situation and housing situation in the present? Or do you just leave them vacant, let people suffer until you can build new affordable housing and bring that online? Like, makes no sense. Bailout. Is it a bailout? Who's bailing out who? Who's bailing out whose ego? Let's listen to Juno News from Alberta here.
Well, both Prime Minister Carney and the Premier of British Columbia are in damage control after the botched condo bailout announcement a week ago. Premier David
Now, they're in damage control because it's a botched bailout? Let's face it. This damage control and this botched rollout is a construct of people's minds. It's got nothing to do with what's going on here. Let's get back to the basics. 1975 is when this problem started. Didn't happen overnight. It's neoliberal economic policies that started in 1975. It's now 50 years later, and you're not going to fix a pattern of 50 years in 12 months. The fact that you can bring some supply online in the present now within 12 months of a new prime minister is actually pretty decent, because new builds going to take a little while longer. So let's be honest about it. You're going to fix the problem by taking action now, or you're going to sit on it and conservative pundits and influencers like this man here, Juno News, and just criticize that, oh, nothing's being done. Nothing's being done. Right. Let's listen to what this gentleman has to say.
Eby says the Vancouver condo program is not aimed at bailing out developers. Eby says the details are yet to be finalized.
On this condo proposal, it's, the federal government was enthusiastic about us announcing this before all the details were out, but
who cares what he says? The fact of the matter is, you're bringing supply on. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. You need to take action, get something done. Now let's go back to this. I believe it's Mark's the narrator here.
In the market, what we see as an opportunity right now is the chance to buy products below the cost of construction.
Well, Carney also tried to clear the air, saying,
so buying a product below the price of construction is pretty decent. So why don't you take advantage of the tools available now? No, here's what this guy says.
No developer asked for a government bailout. He also said the program began as a BC government initiative.
I want to say up front, I don't think we've done, self-included, a particularly good job of rolling this out and explaining exactly what it is. So with your indulgence, I'm going to say, I think it's important to say a few words of what this is and what this isn't. We start, as we always do, with Canadians. We don't start with developers. We don't start, what? Yes, it's great that there are developers and they build condos. What we care about is affordable housing, enough affordable housing, in this case, for the people of British Columbia. And the province of British Columbia, which initiated the idea, sees an opportunity, potentially given what's happening in that market, to convert some of these condos that are lying unsold to affordable housing, particularly rent-to-buy affordable housing for, and you can anticipate, so these are people, in many cases, young families, but people who don't have money for a down payment.
Well, the $3.2 billion program announced last week was met with a lot of backlash, including from Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
Why is he bailing out these condo developers who've made billions over the last several decades?
Why is he bailing out? Who's bailing out developers? And aren't you the guy there, Mr. Pierre Poilievre, that mentions about free markets? All these free markets? Gotta get that letter. Let me get this letter. Here's your letter. This is from Pierre Poilievre. And this is Leader of the Opposition, June 26. Subject, investigating the condo bailout. So he's calling it a condo bailout. But here's the real, where you have to focus on. We know that the real way to achieve affordable housing is by getting rid of all the red tape and taxes on home building and letting builders build. Workers work, buyers buy, and investors invest. While this plan does nothing to build more of the homes we need, taxpayers are being forced to intervene before developers lower prices. Nice. What's that done for us over the last 50 years? By taking this mode of operandi, it hasn't helped, and you just said developers have made billions. What have they done to invest into affordable housing for the people? Absolutely nothing. So that's a moot point. Makes no sense whatsoever. And Mr. Pierre Poilievre, once you understand your neoliberal policies are the root of the issue, then we can start fixing things.
Well, and I quote, the developers don't want to sell at a loss. Who does? But somebody's going to lose money, right? The government inflated the housing market into a bubble, and now...
So the government inflating the housing market into a bubble. This is the most disingenuous statement he's ever made. And once you understand that asset inflation's the problem, you've created a situation with neoliberal economics where you've got asset inflation and not asset creation that helps the people. And this is the issue, and he just can't get it. And he's laughing about it. It's not a joke. People are suffering, and he does not get it. Let's move on to 504 of this video. Oh, but before I do, I got to do one more thing here.
Well, describing the situation as back under control suggests things were out of control before, as many Canadians suspected. The influx of so many foreigners led to a housing crisis, increased crime, and inflation.
So here you go. Here's the friggin' fear factor of fear factor. And you start listening to this stuff because people are parroting this stuff, just creating anxiety. You can't even think for yourself anymore. You just hear it right now from this guy here.
Foreigners led to a housing crisis, increased crime.
So this housing crisis affordability issue has been going on since 1975. This guy here is now saying because of immigration, you've got a housing problem, you've got a crime problem. You know what? I've been around a lot longer than 50 years, and not much has changed over the past 50 years. It hasn't gotten worse. Not to the degree these people want to make you think it has. And now, watch what they're going to do here now, because I was amazed. I just looked at this and I couldn't believe it.
Crime and inflation.
Let's be real. Crime is up. Repeat offenders are released on bail. Police responses are slower than.
So here you go. Now we just scare the heck out of you, and they're going to profit by it. Look at what happened in the United States. Guns, 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 selling guns, guns, guns. And then Mexicans got a problem. Mexico's got a problem with guns. But where do the guns come from? They come from the United States. Where do the illegal guns come to Canada? They come from the United States. And this lady's got the solution. Juno News.
than ever. And in many places, law-abiding citizens are expected to just hope nothing bad happens. That's not good enough. And that's why I'm very pleased today to be telling you about Berna. And I'm so pleased to have this partnership with Juno News because I actually own one myself. I bought one before we ever had this deal with Berna. So what is Berna? It is a non-lethal self-defense launcher that gives
A self-defense launcher. Just scare the crap out of you. And now we're all going to have to go run around being armed, just like the United States. This is a direction you really want to go in? Makes no friggin' sense. Let's go to 504 in this video.
Much, Mr. Petroni. Always a pleasure to be with you.
So we've got both Premier Eby as well as Prime Minister Carney in damage control trying to fix what they broke. Really, you had the announcement on Friday, which was apparently botched from a communications vantage point. It sounded like he wanted to save the developers from losing money. And now he came out, this was yesterday.
Saving the developers from losing money is just a construct they've created to justify their way of thinking and their mind. Full stop. You got a housing supply crisis. You got an affordability crisis. So what do? Bring whatever's available online now in the present. You have a game plan to build new affordable housing. Not going to change 50 years instantly. It's not instant noodles. Everybody wants instant noodles. You can have instant noodles, not great for your health, but in reality, it's not going to work. Especially when you're building homes, it doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. And then we got friggin' arms. Arms to defend yourself from what? Supplanting the thought in somebody's mind that you have to hurt somebody to get something? This Darwinian way of thinking, climbing on the backs of others to get ahead. Gotta stop. You're a human being. You're not an animal. About time you... It's up to you. About time you might realize that you are not an animal. Unless you want to be an animal.
Today and over the course of the last 48 hours. No, it's nothing to do with the developers. They didn't ask us for the money, and we don't care anyway because it's all about affordable housing for Canadians who can't afford it. What do we make of this mess?
Well, first of all, I love that the idea that it's botched comes down to this. It's botched because he told the truth accidentally. That's what made it a botched communication swap. He accidentally had a little slip up and said that it was about the developers. Now, I would just like to remind your viewers that his exact phrase was that no one, quote, directly contacted him. Now, of course, no one seriously thinks that someone is directly contacting the Prime Minister himself personally to deal with this. However, directly is a very interesting use of phrase. Now, to be indirect, one could always speak to his chief.
Holy crap. Can you get to the point, lady? What is this nonsense? Let's just move on to something of substance and understand how we got into this problem. Okay, here's a professor I studied under, economics, and he'll explain what the issue really is here now.
It's a growth in asset prices, not a growth in the real economy. The same thing applies in housing. So we all know that America had a housing boom and bust. That's the subprime boom and bust there. What we don't know is the extent to which mortgage debt drove that increase in house prices. I have a theoretical argument as to what actually caused it, and what it comes down to is the acceleration of mortgage debt causes the change in house prices. And that turns up in the data both for the UK, America, Australia, New Zealand, Spain. All these countries had asset price bubbles driven by private debt. They didn't have investment booms, they had speculative booms. So neoliberalism.
That's the key element right there. You had speculative booms, not investment booms, but speculative booms. And it's the private debt of these speculative booms and the bankers that created the financial crisis, the Great Depression, and setting us up for another one. The general public, their debt level is way too high. And why is that? It's because of this speculative debt investing on the basis of private lenders. They'll spend for mortgages, and you'll notice house credit and house prices are in lockstep here. So, household debt caused the rise in house prices through speculative manners. Neoliberalism promised economic growth, and what happened with that?
Promised economic growth, but it delivered asset price inflation instead. And the physical economy, relatively speaking, stagnated compared to what was happening in the 50s and 60s.
So there you go. Now, what you have to understand, if you've lived long enough, prior to 1980, a house was a money pit. You just put money into it. And in the end, after you paid off your mortgage, you had something to set yourself up for retirement because you paid off all your debts. That's how it worked prior to 1980. Then, all of a sudden, you had the increase. You had OPEC. We had a rampant inflation. Mortgage rates up to 22%. Nobody here in the present really understands that and the effect. But prior to 1980, we had asset creation. After the Second World War up to 1975, asset creation, not asset inflation. And the numbers are irrevocable. You can't deny it.
60s, under the full employment policies, the physical economy grew less rapidly, not more rapidly, courtesy of neoliberalism. So asset owners and the very wealthy did very nicely out of that, and that's one reason they defend neoliberalism so much today. And it's also why politicians who rely upon funding from the private sector can't see what the rest of us are feeling, because they're talking to the people who benefited from this process, and the people who benefited are the ones who are financing the re-election campaigns of these politicians. The working class and the middle class got screwed. And that's why we see a rise in right-wing politics today, because this began with left-wing parties like the Australian Labor Party, the British Labor Party, the American Democratic Party. They introduced these policies, and they are the ones who have been attacked by the right. This is what's leading to political decay and political instability all around the world, but most dramatically in the UK right now. Now, as well as an increase in household debt, what households did in response to that was they thought, oh, I've got to hang on to money to pay my interest bill, so I should spend more slowly, and therefore I can save more money. Now, that works for a single individual. It does not work for the collective economy. If each of us tries to save more money, what we do is slow down the rate at which money turns over. And by slowing down the rate at which money turns over, we slow down the economy as well. And this is vividly obvious in the data. This is the American data from the Federal Reserve Economic Database. But the velocity of money turned over about 1.8 times per year, all the way from the 60s out to the beginning of the 90s. It rose during the Clinton recession and the beginnings of the telecommunications bubble. But once household debt in particular started to rise, we saw this dramatic downward trend in how much money turned over. Effectively, money was becoming less productive at this stage. Back in 1997, money turned over 2.2 times per year. So if you had $1 billion of money, you've created $2.2 billion worth of GDP. By 2020, we were down to the stage where $1 billion caused $1.2 billion worth of GDP. So there's been a decline in the capacity of the monetary system to generate real economic growth. They never understood, they still don't understand, that a government deficit is actually how what we call fiat money
Fiat money. This is how fiat money works.
is created. If the government doesn't spend more than it takes back in taxation, then it doesn't create money backed by the fiat of the state. The only money that's created in that situation is credit-based money, and that credit-based money leads to a huge financial bubble rather than the physical investment we actually need. So by trying to eliminate government deficits and allowing bond sales to occur, which also destroy fiat money, almost all the money created in the last 50 years has been created by the private sector rather than the government. All the dialogue you'll see from mainstream economists complaining about the inflation caused by government spending is in fact caused by the private financial sector. This also, because there was less money being created by fiat money ends up in your pocket without a debt attached to it. But credit money ends up in your pocket with a debt attached to it. So people spend more freely when they have fiat money, and that's one reason for the high level of economic activity in the 50s and 60s. Now, all these factors combined meant that neoliberalism failed. It wasn't the only reason that Starmer's miserable leadership is over, but it's the factor which he shares in common with all his failed predecessors before him. Now, unfortunately, I don't expect any real change out of Andy Burnham, the next leader, because he's likely to follow the same policies. And why is that? Because what they're following is fundamentally what is taught by conventional economics textbooks. And this comes down to the questions, which matters more, politics or economics? And one very intriguing statement was made by Paul Samuelson, who's the person who gave us conventional economics in the first place. And in a guide to one of his textbooks, he wrote, "I don't care who writes a nation's laws if I can write its economic textbooks. The first lick is a privileged one on the beginner's tabula rasa at its most impressionable state." All these politicians were 18-year-old university students at some stage. They did a bit of economics, they learnt the textbook approach, they took it seriously, and because they're applying textbook economics, that is why the economy has been in a crisis ever since neoliberalism began. So we won't get away from neoliberalism unless we get away from the economics that created it. And there is a different way. I'm not the only person who does this work by any means. I've got a large number of colleagues in non-orthodox economics. But what we work in doesn't talk about equilibrium, which is the neoclassical fantasy about a capitalist economy. We live in a complex system. We don't have a barter economy. The monetary system actually matters. You might not realize this, but neoliberal economics pretends that you don't even have a banking sector or money or debt. It pretends we work in a barter system. That is just nonsense. So the realistic approach to economics is based on decades of research that the mainstream has ignored.
Thinking and understand how things work and how money works, the system is not going to change. Now, what I want to stress upon is this here. Now, you go back to neoliberal 1975 and above, which is the left column. You look at Canada, you look at all the nations in that column. Since neoliberal economic policies in 1975 to the present, societies on an average 1.8% growth per annum. Now, prior to that period of 75, we call the pre-neoliberal period, is from the Second World War up to 1975, and you had a growth pattern of 4.03. And that difference is minus 2.2, which is a huge difference. For most countries, that could be a factor at this point in time of up to 3 times of the wealth. And this is why you've had attrition of income per capita growth and just growth overall, no matter what. So unless you change your way of thinking, understand how money works in the economy, you're just going to keep doing the same thing, because these boom and bust cycles are because of asset inflation and private debt. And it's because governments have scaled back. Money comes from the government. You and I cannot create money. The money comes from your government. And the money that goes into a system that is growing and constantly expanding needs energy, and money is energy, just like oil is energy. And this is why also the Strait of Hormuz is going to be a real problem because of the energy that's been supply that's been cut to the world. It's going to affect. They're in lockstep. You deny energy, you deny yourself GDP, gross domestic product. It's going to work together. You've seen it with house prices, where private debt goes down, house prices go down. Private debt goes up, house prices go up. All we've had is asset inflation. People speculating on how to make a profit, not on asset creation. Asset speculation in order to have properties, household properties, the supply for everybody needs every day, in order to speculate to make a profit instead of asset creation that takes care of the needs of the people. So you can continue with this pain and suffering, or you can change your way of thinking to a way of benevolence, harmony, and abundance. Because if you think this is a developer bailout, what are you going to do? You're going to leave those condos empty when you can have a situation where you can actually start moving people into properties, start doing what you need to do to change the economy? Like, come on now. Your ego's talking you out of creating what you need to fix the problem. So let's fix the problems. Love and peace to everyone. Take care. Ciao for now.